after 9 o'clock. We'll let them finish signing in, and then we've got a couple more seats up here so they can have a seat. I am Beth Fields with the City of Richmond. I'm the Director of Infrastructure and Development, and we're glad to see all of you here this morning. Wanted to give a little context to this meeting. As you're aware, this meeting is to talk about an update on the design. We had a meeting that some of you participated in a few weeks ago, where we shared the design and the information from the consulting parties and the design based on the consulting parties' input. There's been a slight modification to that along Main Street, so we wanted to have this meeting to share that information with all of you so that you could have a chance to understand those changes and give you a little bit of context as to where we go from here. The design team is finalizing the design. The design will be submitted to INDOT, the Indiana Department of Transportation. Their technical review committee will review the designs to ensure that we meet all of the minimum standards and requirements by federal highway that govern this project. After that, the area engineer will review the project and will determine the number of days that they feel this project will take. So the area engineer will review everything and he'll say, you know what, this project, based on the work that needs to be done, it's going to take 189 days to complete this project. So therefore, once they have that number of days to complete the project, then the bid will be let. INDOT oversees that project. They post that. Everyone is able, that is interested, is able to bid and submit bids. Those bids are opened by INDOT. INDOT selects a contractor based on the most responsive and responsible bidder. Once that contract is approved, INDOT is the one that enters into the contract with that contractor. The City of Richmond is not a party to that contract. That contract is simply between INDOT and the contractor. Once that contract is in place, then the contractor will work with their subcontractors to determine a schedule. So then at that time, they will determine, we have 189 days to complete this. This is the day that we're going to start. This is the way that we're going to phase this project. This is when we're going to do this work. This is what will follow that. They will set benchmarks and milestones along the way. Once all of that is set, they will then share that with us at the city. Once we have that information, then we'll schedule another meeting to share that information with all of you. And then we'll have an opportunity to comment on the schedule that they've provided. So more than likely, probably January, February of next year, we'll have that scheduled. So at that time, we'll be able to let you know construction is going to start on this day. They're going to start in this location. They're going to be in this block for this amount of time. This is what they'll do. So until that information is available, we won't have that to share with all of you. So just wanted to make everyone aware of those next steps so that you know, today we're really here to talk about the design and some of those modifications that have been made. So I'm going to turn it over to Jim Lowe.
Question: does that mean it's unknown as to whether we will do Main Street and Depot District concurrently or sequentially?
That is correct. Until the contractor is selected by INDOT, we will not know that because the means, method, and scheduling is all up to the contractor. It's under their purview. All INDOT says is you have to be done in this number of days that they send. So that's why a lot of times you'll see projects and they'll work for a couple weeks and then you won't see them for 2 months. And that's because they have that period of time to complete their project. They have other projects that are going. So all that INDOT says is that this is the time frame that you have and you have to complete it during that time frame. So I'm going to turn it over to Jim Lowe. He is the head engineer for this project for Clark Dietz. And he is going to share some of these design updates with you.
Yeah, and it's going to be brief, and then it's going to be more of an open house kind of thing where we have displays. You're welcome to come up and ask any questions that you like, and we'll try to answer them as best we can. If we can't, we'll try to get an answer to you at some point. Again, as Beth mentioned, I'm Jim Lowe with Clark Dietz, the design engineer on the project. Alan Vandenboom is here also with Clark Dietz. He's the project designer. And then we have Chris Moore from Land Story. He's a landscape architect that's working on the landscaping portion of this job. Real quickly, as Beth, just touching on what Beth said, Right now, the schedule is for construction basically to begin in probably January or February of next year, 2022. That obviously is weather dependent. And then to get back to that question, it's really up to the contractor how they want, if they want to have two crews, one working at Depot, one working at Main Street. That's kind of up to them, but they'll have a certain amount of time to get the job done. And if they don't, then they're punished for it, that it's liquidated damages on a daily basis that they have to pay. So there's a big incentive for them to get done quickly and get out. So with that, one thing I did want to mention, the modification, Beth mentioned the modification to Main Street. We ended up adding a few bump outs for trees along this stretch of roadway. We found that, and if you have the handouts for the parking, there's a list of parking spaces at all 3 locations. If you don't have the handout, there's handouts on the table over here on the side. But there's actually 2 handouts. The first handout talks about parking spaces at Main Street and then along Fort Wayne Avenue and North E. That's one handout. The other handout is just specifically on Main Street. And it talks about the parking spaces there and also the trees. So there's existing parking spaces, proposed parking spaces. And what we found was with Main Street, the proposed parking spaces, we actually have significantly more than what existing parking spaces there are there now. So we were able to add some bump outs for trees, to add some trees along the stretch of Main Street. So that's the main modification that came out of the consulting parties meeting that we had about a month ago. And one other thing too, I want to mention, Jeff wanted me to mention this too. The cost of the project right now is estimated at 2.3 million. That's 80% of that is covered by federal funds. So 80% of 2.3 is covered by federal funds, and then the 20% would be the city of Richmond. Right, that's correct breakdown, is that right? Other than that, I don't really have anything else. Alan, did you have anything that's, or Chris, did you have anything? And again, the displays are up front here. Feel free to come up and look, ask questions. We have a typical of both the Main Street and Fort Wayne Avenue North E to take a look at. And we, again, thank you for coming and having interest in this project. It's great to see the turnout that we had today. Beth, did you have anything else or
questions?
Yeah, we'll open up for questions. Yes.
You all right with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
On your sheet, you got trees on Main Street. You don't say anything about trees on the Depot District.
Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't put that together for this meeting. We can put something together and get that out to everybody if we need to.
Okay, can you elaborate on what's going to happen though? Do you already
We have a decent idea. On the side that the bike path is going, those trees will be removed because it was either trees or parking, and it seemed like the emphasis was on parking.
Okay, Mike, it is, but we don't want to lose our trees either because we're selling it as a positive thing that we're planting trees, but we're taking 20-year-old trees out and 4 foot of sidewalk. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. There's no option on the width of the bike path.
No, that's the minimum width. We have the minimum width now. Federal law.
Can I get a copy of it?
Yep. Yeah, it's online, but I'd be happy to send you the link.
And there's no wiggle room on that at all, because that sounds like a very.
In order to qualify for federal funding, and Greg can go into detail on that, but in order to qualify for federal funding, we have to have this minimum width.
Yeah, and so where other towns have had this wide bike path on roads as narrow as us, what other towns?
Indianapolis, city of Indianapolis, the Cultural Trail.
On a town that, on a road that.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you list that too?
Yeah.
It's even more narrow for the other cultural trail one through downtown Indianapolis. And the most recent project I can think of is the city of Lebanon. They've done a very similar project to Main Street that you currently have, and also the next phase, but it's even more narrow, the right of way. I think it's only 60 foot wide. And they have a similar bike path that's 8 to 10 foot wide.
And it's in a commercial area?
Yes, sir. Downtown, the downtown square has it in Lebanon.
Now, on the cultural trail, there are areas where there's shared sidewalk and bike trail. Is that correct?
In some areas, there's some overlap. When you're getting like to the Fountain Square area, there is some overlap, but it's a very similar cross section and condition which you currently have proposed on Main Street.
Around Mass Avenue, I think there's some areas.
There's some areas that are combination, but you still have the dedicated like pavement that says, okay, this is the trail versus here's the sidewalk, which is for pedestrians and it's time. But in some locations, it does kind of split off and separate it just a little bit.
Is that something that would be restricted by federal funds? In this case,
Yes, I believe so, yeah.
and, as far as pedestrian traffic, I think, in my own opinion, that the importance in areas like the Depot and Main Street are people walking and accommodating walkability and the opportunity for businesses to move out onto the sidewalk for things like that, or dining, that sort of thing. Is there any thought put into that? You got 4-foot sidewalks?
I think there's a minimum of 6 foot on both conditions, from the building face to the edge of the trail, a minimum of 6 foot. And then the trail itself is 8 foot.
Again, we're limited, as you know, with the face
Yeah.
of building to face of building, so there's only a certain.
And
Right.
government restrictions. I mean, for me, walking is probably more paramount to an area like that as opposed to hiking, but again, you're working with restrictions. The 20%, I'm sure, I know I've been told this before, but just to refresh me, where is that money coming from? And is it being held in some type of escrow, or is that it's designated?
It was approved by redevelopment.
What year was that?
Redevelopment has approved funds.
When was that?
Oh, probably 3 years ago.
So then is the money being held somewhere, or is it just
Well, it's
being held in
here,
funds
It's,
to be?
no, it's
earmarked?
paid out.
it's obligated, so redevelopment commission, when they approve a resolution, they obligate that, and then that goes on their books as an obligation, so that it can't be spent.
Mhm.
So that those funds have been obligated and they will be utilized on the project.
Very good.
City for the city, who posted the get in the loop? I mean, who was the author of this Facebook post? City in the Loop?
That would be Jeff. Jeff is our community development
Well, this is my
coordinator.
question for him. He said property values, the loop and others for complete street become a catalyst for economic reinvestment. We would like proof of that because we're very concerned this is going to do more harm than good. And it says expect to spur investments in downtown Depot District Center. What was that? What were those two comments based on?
So those are based off of basically the loop's development, why the loop happened. It's also based off of different projects that have happened, like in downtown Indianapolis and Kokomo and Lebanon and those projects. And again, those are just estimates, just trying to encourage people to embrace what's already there and celebrate what's already there. And then kind of accept that this is happening and have some positive reaction going on in the community.
And we've also had, in partnership with the Economic Development Corporation, we have had some different developers that have come to look here specifically because of the investment that we're making in the loop and the infrastructure. So they are very interested in potential apartment units, potential retail, potential restaurants. Those are some of the projects that they've spoken to us specifically about. And they have looked at specific real estate and toured specific real estate that is on the loop because of their interest and because of the investment that's being made. So we hope to see some of those projects, be able to announce those as they work forward through the process of acquiring those and moving their projects forward.
So these investment potential is something for real or
Yes,
just ideas?
yeah, very, very tangible.
Well, I'm not sure that that's exactly a fair way of phrasing that. I mean, there are no guarantees with anything. We could all drop dead in 5 seconds. I mean, there's potential. No one can sit here and give you proof of anything that's going to happen. This will act as a catalyst. It may prove as a catalyst. It may not. But in my opinion, it's better than sitting on our ass and doing nothing.
disagree with that. I've been doing something for 30 years and that's why I got my whole life in this. That's why I'm
So
questioning.
you're older than me and your opinion is more valuable.
No, I didn't say that. I'm
What
wasn't
comes off.
disagreeing with you. I'm just disagreeing with you. I've been investing in this for 30 years.
Okay, and I've been investing in everything for 7 years, so
Okay,
we're keeping score.
I'm not discounting. I'm just saying, I'm very concerned. And I think
Yes,
it's,
and,
so,
and we hear you, and I think that's
That's great.
part of the design, the way that it's been designed is based on the input that we received from yourself and other consulting parties to ensure that we're adding additional parking, ensure that we have the ability for traffic, because there's a lot of different types of traffic that travel along these paths, ensuring that we're able to accommodate those. Ensuring that we have the availability for foot traffic and foot generation along this, as Matt pointed out, it's very important that we be walkable. So this plan ensures that we have that walkability and will help increase our walkability scores as we move forward. So I think we're working diligently to incorporate everyone's concerns and to move through those and to have a product that, you know, we know everyone is never going to be happy with exactly what we're doing. And we know that, and I don't know that there's ever been a project that 100% of the people are happy about, but we're trying to listen to everyone and incorporate that and come to a consensus with what makes the most sense. So that's part of the reason we've been having the consulting parties meetings, part of the reason that we're here today, because we want to keep you informed and share this information and allow you the chance to ask questions and provide feedback as well.
This project coming on the heels of the pandemic, which none of us could know was coming. I know that many of the merchants and businesses are coming out of that, barely surviving, and now we're going to go into these couple of 3 years of construction with the loop and then the bridge down in the depot on 9th Street. I think a concern is making sure there's plenty of notice when construction does start so that these businesses can have an alternative way to plan ahead for people to access their business. I know that's important. If there's no back door to your business, how are they even going to get? I know Paige struggles with that.
Yeah.
How are they even going to get in her door because she's on Fort Wayne Avenue and there's no back door? So I think that's a big concern that would be great to that ahead of time so the merchants can get.
We can make plans.
Make a plan. How do we get customers in the door?
Right, that's a great point, and that's something we're gonna incorporate into the contract documents, that the contractor is gonna be required to work with the city. And Jeff can maybe go into more detail on this, I don't know, but work with the city to get notice out to people so that you know what's coming, so it's not a surprise. That nobody likes surprises, I believe. I don't like surprises and nobody here does. So that's something that we're gonna work diligently to make sure the contractor lets you folks know what's coming, when it's coming. And the other thing we're gonna try to emphasize is that once they start, we want them there, in and out. You know what I mean? Like not coming for a week, gone for 3 weeks, kind of thing. Now, we can't control everything the contractor does, but we're gonna try to tighten that as much as possible, so.
So dovetailing with that, it sounds like you're saying there are provisions for not just the period of time of the entire project, but the period of time they might be in front of a specific business, because tearing it up and then leaving and working somewhere else for 3 weeks and leaving that torn up for 3 weeks while they're not working on it still impairs that.
Right,
business to the
and
same extent.
again, we don't have control of what, we don't even know who the
I understand
contractor is. But we're gonna try to tighten those requirements so that that doesn't happen.
So that they're not looking all over the place
Right,
concurrent.
Yeah, and I think to add to what Jim said, part of the reason when we started this project, that one of the handouts today was the project team. And because this is within the Depot District Association's purview, as well as Center City Development Corporation's purview, those organizations appointed a representative for this project team, as well as the mayor's office appointed someone from each of those districts, as well as we have council representation. So the information is going to go to those individuals, and we're utilizing those individuals because we obviously can't speak to everyone or get the information to everyone. And those that are out there interacting each day, because as those two organizations are the advocates and the voice for those areas, then we want to be sure that they have the information so that they can share it with their constituency. And so if you have questions, they'll have information, we'll have information. Jeff's gonna have a robust presence online to share information as well, so.
Yeah, one thing I did want to mention is all of this, all these handouts, if you don't get a handout or don't want to take it with you, or whatever, or if somebody else that you know that can't be here, this information is all going to be on the website, right? So you'll be able to access it, including the drawings we show today. They'll be on the website for people to view.
I might add that contractors required to provide access to all businesses all the time. So it's not like you're not gonna have access to.
Is that been in place for a while? Because I know 2 businesses in my family that had their access blocked and were not aware of it until they came in the morning. They're not even getting their own parking. And that's supposed to have been going on all along.
Yes, we supposed to provide access unless, I don't know if they communicate or what. I don't, you can be specific.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the concerns that has come to me, and I've had the same concern, is the overlap, the possible overlap when they do the bridge project in the bike path. There's going to be a big diversion of traffic. And there's already a big problem with the semis and them being able to get to businesses, and it already exists. So you're going to have all this traffic going down into where the depot is. And you have Purina, you know, all the traffic going down there, the semis and everything. That is a big concern, especially when it's so close to each other. And how is the traffic going to be diverted? How is the traffic flow going to be able to get through everything? The turning for the semis.
I know with our design, we tried to design for the trucks that would be delivering as much as possible. That's why you don't see many bump outs. I know in phase 1, I think the phase 1 portion had quite a few bump outs and things that caused some issues for the delivery trucks. We've tried to eliminate those as much as we could. In fact, most everywhere, especially in the depot district, we don't have any. So
you've done it for them.
yeah, we've done turning movement studies, and that we actually have a couple of copies of that if somebody wants to see that. But so as far as the access to our project, this project we're talking about today, we'll you know, that's going to be improved with our project. The bridge project we're not involved with. I'm not sure what their scheme is.
A year or 2 past.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what their
Project should be done. Wait for.
yeah, and I'm not sure what their maintenance of traffic scheme is. I know for through traffic, probably it would be detoured on state routes somehow, but I'm not sure on that. I can't answer the question about the bridge project. I can't answer their maintenance of traffic.
And then the other thing was Neff Street that runs right next to Ori's Ice Cream. Is there going to be changes to that street?
No.
Okay, no changes.
That's outside the scope of this project.
Is January and February a typical time to start a project like this with construction, with weather issues? And
It's kind of an optimistic start. You know, if the weather turns, you know, it's early spring, they'll get going, early spring. It's basically generally in a project like that starts in February, doesn't really start robustly until probably now, you know, mid-April, something like that, because of the weather.
There may be some utilities.
Yeah, right.
Probably starting to get out of the way.
Okay.
Which they're doing a lot of work down there right now.
Is there available to us to view a drawing of the actual layout of the path, curbs, sidewalk, every?
Yeah, we do have some copies here today that you're welcome to take with you. Copies of both Main Street. This is the larger version, but we do have smaller 11 by 17 versions you're welcome to take with you. Yep. So I'm sorry we didn't hand those out, but they're a little more cumbersome.
Well, I have a number of questions about that, but one of them which raised now is the planting areas. 2 things: the ease of access between the sidewalk and the path, so that there's pedestrian flow. I'm a biker. I bike most days. My family has biked every day for the last 40 years. So I'm very pro biking, but owning a building in a retail district, I am aware that pedestrian traffic has to be more important than biking traffic. That
Yes.
that has to be a shared agreement amongst everyone on this project.
Right.
Biking's important. No one's biking into my shop or into a restaurant. So the ease of pedestrian access, as I look at the Main Street portion of the project that is completed, there are those garden beds that you either have to step over or go around, running quite a bit of length of that, 2 sets of them. So I'm curious as to whether that has been altered for this plan.
Right, this plan does not include the rain gardens, I think is what you're referring
And the
to.
narrow gardens that are purely decorative. that
Okay.
Are no longer decorative since no one's maintaining them.
Right, right. We do have that on Fort Wayne. We have a section of the small landscape area that Chris can go into detail about how they would treat that. But we also have walkways between the parking and the sidewalks so people don't have to step into the mud or the planting areas, if you will. So there is, and again, we can talk specifics afterwards. I can show you if you have any specific locations.
Jimmy might explain that the sidewalk and the bike path are not basically the same elevation.
Yes, they are. Yeah, Greg makes a good point.
The street is separate. So the bike path is not in the street. So you'll have a 12-foot section or more between the face of the building.
Yeah, and
So
there'll
the
be,
sidewalk and bike path are integrated plan.
Yes.
Yes.
yes, the delineation, and Chris can go into detail on that. The delineation will be in the landscaping features for each.
So the bike path and the sidewalk are the same elevation, but they're different materials similar to what I have here in phase 1. But what I can speak to is what they found in other cities, like Indianapolis and Lebanon, is by identifying the trail, which is not, it's a bike path, but it's not a bike path like you would see out in the city. People are not gonna be going 15, 20 miles an hour on their bikes. That, like in downtown Indy, since we work on the public trail, the people slow down, they watch what they're doing, and it's just a clear line and color change of pavement. So, okay, the bike people should be here, and pedestrians are here. So even though it's 6 foot or whatever it is, you actually still have 12 to 15 feet of space. It's the bikers stay to the side or even get off and walk in some cases when they get into the more populated downtown areas. And then I think what happened since the last iteration is on Main Street here, the 2-foot strip that was landscaped between the curb and the path is not actually pavers or hardscape. That planting is gone. So when you park your car and you step on the curb, it's just all pavement up to the building face. And then on Fort Wayne, we still have a 2-foot strip of planting between the curb and the path. In some cases, it's because the grade change between those two is different because of the drainage. We have to tilt the curb, and we don't want that to be hardscape because the slope isn't going to be appropriate for someone to step on. But we're currently working with the Parks and Rec department to determine what type of plant material we're comfortable with for maintaining what was successful in phase 1 and what we can put in phase 2. But it's not gonna be stuff that you're gonna step in, on plant material, and crush it and things like that. It's something probably lawn or something very low that can be walked on and be maintained.
I think one other thing you touch on, Jim, is the profile as far as like downtown, the sidewalks will remain brick and the pavers as currently designed, but then in the depot area, there'll be concrete sidewalks. And then the pavers.
Yes, and that's
So there'll be delineation between the sidewalk.
right. That's
and the trail.
yeah, that's a great point, and that's going to be the delineation basically. It's almost like the color difference and the texture difference.
Are the bricks that are the current downtown sidewalks, are they going away? Will it be as part of the new design? Is it an entirely new set of bricks? Or will these bricks be?
Yeah, we're going to try to reuse some of the star bricks, I think, that are out there.
But it'll be the same bricks used between 5th and 7th.
So
It'll
to match
continue
what's already in
on to
place.
match.
Sure.
It's gonna match.
Yeah, because the bulk of the sidewalk bricks are not the star bricks.
Right.
I mean, currently.
I'm not even sure whether there's star bricks on.
I think there are
On
locations.
some of the bump outs on the edges.
Yeah.
Like around here.
But you don't have the bump outs like you did in the first phase at all. You don't have the rain garden. You have more parking. We'll have electrical for outlets. For the trees, for Christmas lights. We'll also have festival power. department to provide for festivals. That each corner on this, at least downtown will be on the south side. So we, you know.
And that will be true in the depot district as well?
At this time, no, because we, I don't know. We might, there might be, we're looking at, they'll have a public input meeting about what's gonna happen under the bridge. And how that will get laid out. That can maybe chime in on this a little bit. We haven't started any design or hired anybody to do it, but that design and construction would occur simultaneously with the bridge, so everything's done. So, you know, we'll need the input from the public of how you and city needs to make that work. We did talk about electrical outlets under the bridge for festivals there at that time. So
Well, I can't speak for anyone else, but I would like to show up as saying, I would like to have outlets in the trees in the depot district so that we can have lighting and be part of festival decoration as well. Because we do have a lot of festivals and I would like to have more.
And our businesses kind of depend on them too, you know.
Absolutely.
We have a question on Zoom. Are there any plans for bike racks in the shopping districts to encourage us to stop and visit local businesses?
Yeah, there'll be some bike racks. I'm not exactly sure the location, but we'll provide bike racks closer to the intersections where there are bump outs.
We've identified the same look
Yes,
as phase one. We've already-
same furnishing, so they match phase one. So we want to do this project.
Regarding bike parking, is there a code against bikes being brought into a restaurant or a shop? Is there any kind of health restriction?
I couldn't answer to that. I would imagine it's based on city ordinance, whatever.
Does anybody know? I mean, that'd just be the choice as a store owner that they can welcome the cyclists, you know, in. I mean,
Yeah, I'm not aware of anything that would prohibit it. I think it would be as the property owner, they oversee what happens within their property. So if they choose to allow bikes in and provide a space for those, then that would be their choice.
because they could be more appealing places that they allow that versus other businesses that wouldn't if they had the space. If there wasn't bike racks. If there weren't bike racks. Well, thanks.
We'll put in plenty of bike racks.
Do what?
We'll put in plenty of bike racks.
Oh, yeah.
Are there considerations being made for the food and beverage businesses that have tables outside of their businesses? Is there going to be space still available for that?
I think we'll have what, 12 to 15 feet of the same level of, you know, sidewalk like that could be utilized for that sort of thing. It
Is
might-
the city going to allow that? Does anyone know? Because there are right now several businesses that have tables outside.
There's already an ordinance that oversees that. Within those guidelines are already set to ensure that there's ADA accessibility maintained along the sidewalks. So that's something that's already in place. There's already a.
I understand that we're gonna lose 4 feet of sidewalk, so that will change the clearance on the sidewalk itself. So I'm curious as to whether those businesses are gonna be seeing the loss of their tables or not.
And I couldn't answer that depending on where they're located. We have seen in some other projects where they've taken a parking space and made a parklet and put outdoor seating in that, so that could potentially
Is the city open to that?
be an option. Absolutely, absolutely. That was something we talked about last year with the pandemic and kind of put that out there. We didn't have anybody take us up on it, but it was something that was available. But the ADA clearance, that's a federal guideline, so that's not something that we can, by ordinance, or we can say, no, it's okay that the sidewalk is narrow, or that the walking path is narrower than a certain thing, because that's the Americans with Disabilities Act requirements. If anybody wants any information on parklets, we have tons of that, and in Parks and Rec, we're happy to send any information your way, just get a little bust.
But we are definitely interested in that in the district, and I can speak for other people on that.
I can send that to Tracy, and she can send that out, and I'll also send it back.
Thanks, me.
There's a number of cities that, you know, experimented with carpets, with dining, and decided to make them actually permanent. And over the Rhine, Cincinnati is a good example.
It does take up a parking space.
Well,
That does make a lot of people upset, but it is very trendy and it is very exciting.
I'm open on target.
It's not just about trendy and
I'm all about
exciting in
walking.
cities where that's happening, that's commerce. And the Depot District, I won't speak for downtown, but the Depot District is pretty frantic about our economic survival right now. We're frantic about it. So that's the tone you're going to feel in these meetings.
Okay, anything else? And
Oh,
wrap up
well,
and,
will the pads be allowed to be multi-purpose? If there's some type of activity or event or,
Yeah,
you know, if
yeah, for
business wants to
events.
set something out on the,
For events, it will be the same process that it is now for closing a street or closing a sidewalk. We work with Lieutenant Benedict in the traffic department, and that goes through Board of Works for approval. So that option remains available.
So it's feasible that we would be able to set up carts and booths in the path during the festival.
That is a possibility.
We did that.
well, what about, you know, just normal business activity? Is it possible if you think here, you know, is the bike path exclusive for bicycles? It seems like, you know, unless you have a great number of people riding bikes up and down the trail, is that space that could be utilized for other things or normal daily activity? Yeah.
It will be a protected bike lane or other wheeled, our ordinance allows things other than bike to be on the path. So it wouldn't be somewhere you could set tables in every day because we need to have that for the transportation. But if there were a special event, there'd be opportunity that could be used. I think you would have to weigh, you know, the different considerations with that. But that's absolutely a possibility. But on a daily, all the time basis, no.
Looks like you have some idea. I'd love to hear about
Well, it's already done. You know, you have to follow the requirements set in order to be able to get funding for the project. So, you know, a number of options for different uses for the area kind of out of the question because it has to be designated for bicycle traffic.
if you have a program like this.
Now, that's going to be up to the people in the Depot District.
I might want to respond to that. I mean, on other similar projects around the state, even other states, that, yeah, it's a bike path and a sidewalk, but these are terminologies that have to be used in terms of getting the federal funding for this particular project. The project is similar, but what we find is that in similar conditions, that 15 or 12-foot wide area, even though there's a bike path, pavement, a sidewalk, it's just people kind of disperse and intermingle without that whole space. So it's not really programmed, it's not going to be signs saying no bikes only or pedestrians only. It's for the federal dollars that this project can get to put that path in and put the sidewalk next to it.
I mean, again, you know, you bring up cultural trail, and Lebanon and all of that. But, you know, I look at areas like the Depot District, it's an entertainment area. And it seems like the biking is focused on getting people to those entertainment areas. I mean, Mass Avenue in Indianapolis doesn't have a trail going up and down the main area. It follows a path around so that you can get to the area. And so that allows for that major entertainment area to be focused primarily on pedestrian activity. And again, it's already in the design. I'm just thinking out of the box here and not to be critical or anything. But it just, to me, it seems like an area like the Depot District and even Main Street. I can't speak for any of these people because I don't have a business there. I don't live there. I just live a block away from it. But from what I've seen in other communities, it seems like the area that's focused for entertainment is more focused for pedestrian activity.
And part of, like, as you said, you know, part of it is that top of mind awareness and people are aware of what is along the loop. So if you're biking or you're walking or you're going around, maybe you haven't been someone and there's
an amazing, Renee's got an amazing art display in her window. You go by there and you make a mental note, I gotta come back down here because I want to go in there. So it's not always the moment that they see it, but it's making sure that they have enough repetitions, they've seen it enough, that they've got that top of mind awareness when they think, "Oh, I'm hungry, I want to go grab something to eat, or I want to go to a show, or what I want to do," they're aware of what's there. So it's going to help bring awareness as to what is in our districts.
That's certainly one of the big positives we're putting a lot of weight into.
Yeah, we've seen, and Jed can share some of them out. There are case studies from other communities where they put these in, talking about the increased traffic that they've seen in the businesses and the increased revenue that they've had from that top of mind awareness. So we can share some of those case studies out too.
Jen, can you tell us, I know they mentioned your webpage or your Facebook page. Can you tell us what those are so we can all have those?
Yeah, so on our Facebook page, is the city's Facebook page, I don't regularly post about the loop and other stuff going on. Our Twitter is Stellar Richmond. And then our Instagram is, I forget what our Instagram
Richmond
is.
City Up.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, Richmond City Up.
Okay.
So yeah, follow us there. And then this afternoon, I will post all of this information and then some other information with case studies and other economic studies that I find in the next coming weeks on richmondindiana.gov. There'll be a landing link on the landing page that you can click on and go there and check all that stuff out. So, and that page right now hasn't really been updated since a couple months ago. So I decided to add all this new great information on there and get that out to you guys. And of course, if you have any questions about, what's going on or whatever, or, you want to meet and connect you to somebody in the city, I'm more than happy to do that. That's my job. So.
Will you email me once you have that all updated and then
Yeah.
I'll send that out to the depot?
Okay,
district?
yep. Sounds good.
Jeff, one thing about the city site on Facebook is that there's not an opportunity for folks to share things on that. And we may have some photographs, and, you don't want anything negative out there. Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
However, I think if you allow people to share ideas, different things going on, maybe another.
Well, maybe we could make a loop group and get some people in the loop on a group on Facebook. Yeah.
I'm talking about just in general.
Okay.
There's other issues besides the loop
Mhm.
in the community that maybe people would like to, share ideas, share what's going on in other communities, things
Yeah.
like that. I mean, just an idea.
Yeah, thanks.
This is just a way you're allowing people to engage with you other than just.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll leave it at that.
Jim, would you mind discussing the drainage improvements too? in the Central area?
Actually, Alan is the one that's kind of designed some of that, so I'll turn it over to Alan. He's the expert on that, so.
I wouldn't say expert, but we have made some pretty significant improvements along both Fort Wayne and Northeast Street, specifically towards the 10th Street side of things, where it seems to be that there's been a lot of flooding issues. In the past, we've added a lot more curb inlets to that area. We've upsized the trunk line that carries all of that water, so we're definitely hoping to improve that drainage and kind of reduce some of that flooding where,
Now,
as
put
best
that
as we
trunk
can.
line down Fort Wayne Avenue too, or to- that's better than sewer going.
Yeah.
there will be a new trunk line along Fort Wayne and North Street. What's that?
Yeah.
Yes, yep, it's all inclusive.
How long does that take?
It'll all be in the
Yeah,
same
it's in the same
construction
project.
process. With the path and the sidewalk and all of that.
Can you guys talk about some other amenities that are attached to this price tag of the project, whether it's plantings or lighting or whatever?
Chris, you want
So in
to?
terms of landscape, there'll be the planting trees, understory plantings. There'll be site furnishings, benches, trash litter receptacles, bike racks. Then the decorative pavers for the bike path itself, they'll match the same material that was used in phase 1. And then there'll be some streetscape lighting.
Right, the lighting will be replaced. Richmond Power and Lights, been great to work with.
Yeah, they'll install the same lights that are from the 5 and 7, all the way to 10. And then the lighting in the Depot district, there'll be decorative lighting on Northeast Street, there'll be the bigger decorative lights. And on the one side, it'll, when Brent went with our now to do a lighting study, to make sure they have the correct number of lumens. And so the larger decorative lights will be on the Depot, the Depot areas along that side. And then there'll be lights also on Fort Wayne Avenue, on the furniture side, ice cream side. What else?
I guess one of the other things to point out is that the intersection is at 7th and Fort Wayne, there'll be much improved crossing there for pedestrians in terms of the lighting and signaling, but also the signage and then striking on the pavement. It'll be much safer for people to cross that intersection.
So all of those amenities come included with that loop price tag. So they're all included in this project and they're all under that umbrella of 80% federal funding. It's not just the bike path, right?
Yeah, and I don't know about the lighting. I don't know what the lighting breakdown.
Lighting, there's $250,000 in the grants that helps to pay our VML. So there were, we would pay 50,000, the city would pay 50,000, and the grant pays 20,000.
What provisions are there for cost overruns?
As far as the construction or,
Yeah, man, what I found in the many projects that I've been involved with, usually NDOT will come up with the additional funds to cover their 80%, and then the city.
So you're anticipating cost overruns then?
No, but when it does happen,
You should.
yeah, I mean, it's,
You know, anything like
it's possible.
business, you gotta
Yeah.
put it for them.
Right.
Yeah, there's contingency in the budget as part of that, but then also if there are unforeseen items that come up, or if there's something that we learned from the process that needs to be modified or changed, then we would seek additional funding to ensure that we can make those modifications.
This is an issue I'm not sure is under the purview of any of you here. It's been addressed verbally, but I am concerned about the impact on the old buildings in the Depot district vibrationally. I 2 weeks ago had a backhoe slamming into my building, literally into the foundation of my building. We were assured verbally that those issues were going to be taken very seriously, the vibrational impact on our old buildings. But I understand that it's going to be the construction contractors who are going to be in charge of that. So my question is whether there will be a formal written portion of the contract where it is agreed upon that when you can use a saw, you use a saw. You don't use a backhoe to remove chunks.
Yeah, there's gonna be provisions in the contract that require the vibratory requirements, so that within a certain limit to the building, length from the building, they will not be able to do certain compaction to try to protect as much as possible those buildings.
So this is going to be a shared understanding amongst all parties that those old buildings are at risk and need to be
Yes.
very carefully protected.
So who holds the responsibility? Because I'm still dealing with damage in a building and I'm stuck
Right, it's
dealing with
it's on
legal, so who holds that
the
responsibility?
contractor, the contract book holds the contractor responsible for that. If it's in the contract, which we're gonna put it in the contract documents, that they have to stay a number of feet away from the buildings to do their vibratory work. If they violate that and something happens, that's on them.
And it's in that,
Yes, and it's in that, that's, yeah.
because they hold the contract.
Well, I mean, these damages aren't necessarily vibration. I mean, we're dealing with design issues and whatnot. So, I mean, who holds the responsibility?
Again, I think it goes back to NDOT, yes.
Because NDOT's technical review committee would be the ones that would have approved the designs and would approve the drawings, and NDOT would approve those drawings, put those out for bid. So that is NDOT's responsibility under their purview. Well, I think we'll give everybody a chance to come up and look at the drawings, look at the cross section.
And I'm gonna put, these are the smaller versions of these drawings. I'm gonna put these on the table, so people feel free to take
Yes.